What up, everybody, and welcome to Baz on Blades. My name is Baz, and I talk about blades, and today we're talking about the CH Knives 3528 flipper folder. This knife does not really have a name, just sort of a item number, but I think sometime during this review I am going to name this knife. Let's see what we're looking at here from CH Knives, another Chinese manufacturer of what I would consider to be higher end, finer made bearing pivot flipper folders predominantly. CH is not a household name brand, but they are known within the community, especially to those that really like these sort of ball bearing flippers out of China. They're consistently really good knives, typically for the price, and this is no exception. I've had a few CH knives of all price levels come through my hands, and they've all been just well-made knives. I mean, just as well made as any of the other Chinese brands. And I don't want to get into argument about who makes the best knives. It's obvious these Chinese companies, want to support them or not, they make a good product, and this is a good product, the CH Knives 3528. I did pick this knife up from Justin at White Mountain Knives. Again, no business affiliation at all between Justin and White Mountain Knives and Baz on Blades, other than the relationship of a customer to a retailer. I've just had really good luck with White Mountain Knives, and the pricing is fair. Justin gives us the 10% discount codes you can use on any of these knives. And speaking of a discount code, let's talk about what this knife cost. First of all, this knife is $32.90 with the micarta handle in D2 for your blade steel. It is also available in an OD green micarta with the same blade steel. You're looking at $32.90. You take a 10% discount code, throw on it, and you're at $29.61 shipped to your door. Now, that is getting down there to Ganzo FH series knives, and this is a better made knife than those knives by a degree. I'm not going to say this is like a super world-class build or anything, because it's not, but it is a very solid knife, especially at that $30 price point. Now, let's do something special here. We're going to talk about this packaging from CH Knives. This is done in an embossed foil over bronzy sort of look to it. It's actually, for just a box, it's super duper attractive. But the real secret about this box and what makes it such a nice box is this. Inside the box, you'll find the knife in a plastic bag, and you also see this insert. This is the CH Knives Magic Fingers insert. There is a hidden battery compartment, and when you put your 9-volt battery in there, this thing does vibrate. Then you take the box and you stick it down in your pants. Good thing it works for men and women and those in between as well. And that is the CH Knives Magic Fingers box. I think those fingers are actually to accommodate different shaped knives to hold them in the box. But I like the Magic Fingers thing, and I think if people believe that, they'll go out and buy CH Knives thinking that they've got a vibrating Magic Fingers box. Ha ha ha! Joke's on them for being such dumbasses. Let's talk about this knife. Let's knock out the numbers. We are looking at a 3 3/4 inch blade length. That's 9.5 centimeters. The blade width at the widest is 1.10 inches or 28 millimeters. And your blade stock thickness, 158 thousandths of an inch, right at 4 millimeters. Handle length is 5 inches or slightly greater than 12.5 centimeters. The width at the widest, 1.17 inches or 30 millimeters, and the handle thickness, 599 thousandths of an inch or 15 millimeters. The overall length on this thing is 8 3/4 of an inch or 22 centimeters. Your handle to blade ratio, very good at 75%. behind the edge thickness on this D2 tool steel blade is 13 thousandths of an inch, and I did measure that multiple times because of how short this grind is. That is 0.33 millimeters, very slicey behind the edge thickness, and the weight is 4.73 ounces or 134 grams. Now, this is a full-size stylized EDC type of flipper folder, and that's what it is. I really can't say much more about that other than let's just go into talk about the materials, the fit and finish on this, and that's where you'll see your value in this knife. Again, the blade is in D2, nothing spectacular there. CH does have a decent reputation as far as their heat treat and temper on D2, so no issues there. I have carried this knife for almost 2 weeks now, daily carried, and I've not had any issues with it. It is performing like D2. So there you have it, D2 performing like D2. And what is that? Well, it's going to hold an edge a moderate amount of time. When that razor edge goes away, it leaves a very toothy, aggressive, almost micro saw edge type of edge. It works really well against things that a more polished blade might slide on rather than cutting, like plastic strapping material. D2 is a good steel for that. It has a lot of larger size carbides in the edge, and they do act as sort of a toothy cutting edge. And that edge, to my experience, lasts a decent amount of time. D2 is, impact resistance, toughness, it's okay in a folder like this. I don't like D2 in larger blades you might try to chop with because it can be a little chippy, especially up around its upper end of its typical HRC range, which is going to be that 60, 61, 62. And you'll see most people or most companies, they will heat treat this to where the final is going to be about 59, 60. 61 at the highest, really, especially with that behind the edge thickness at 13 thousandths. You don't want to get this D2 too hard at that behind the edge thickness. It will become chippy. I've not seen anything like that, so I think we're okay here. Corrosion resistance on D2 is borderline, as D2 is considered semi-stainless and not fully stainless. It misses that qualification by about 1.5% of chromium. D2 is one of the most boring knife steels that there is in 2023, but that does not take away from it being a decent semi-stainless everyday usable steel. So nothing exciting, but it's not bad at all. Now in your handle, you've got this black micarta. Let's take a look at it. And in the hand, it is very smooth. There's not much of a fiber feeling on the surface. It feels like 99% like smoothly machined G10. It's a very smooth, but it does have a sort of a tackiness when you bear down on that. There is still just you can hear that. And I think that's just the micro of the fiber that's in that. You don't really feel it, but it still has an effect as far as grippiness goes. It's not the nicest micarta I've ever seen, but it's a handle and you hold on to it and it's comfortable. So there you go on a $30 knife. You've got stainless liners. You can see within there, they are machined out for weight relief, at least on the show side of the knife, not on the liner side. They are polished. For your backspacer, you do have a micarta. It's the same micarta as the handle, and you do have a nice little wasp-waisted wire pocket clip that is nicely done, not reversible for left-hand carry, but Again, $30, you get what you get with this. If you're just looking for something solid that looks cool enough and feels good in hand and whatnot, this is a good option in this size range. Nothing fancy about the materials. Let's see, ceramic bearings on the pivot and detent, and you've got a dressed out, machined out stainless pivot here. There's just enough going on here to make the knife look decent, but not enough to where it's going to be a showpiece for sure. There's not really in any one material or finish that sticks out to you on this. It just looks like a working knife. That's what it looks like to me. Let's see, we got materials out of the way. Let's do fit and finish. As far as the blade goes, the grinds are even side to side. Look at that plunge. The swedge is ground evenly side to side. The finishing, this stonewash finish, is really nice. The blade was finished finely as far as the grinds go before that stonewash was applied. And as muted and satiny as this looks, it could have a media blast. They've done the final grinds on it, and then they've done a media blast, and then they've done a stone wash over that to bring it back a little more sateen sort of sheen back into that surface. It's attractive. It doesn't show fingerprints really bad, but you can see where I've touched on it. It's just it's a working class blade finish. I can't complain about it. Markings are not too bad, although I would have preferred to see all the markings on the back side. That's okay. You get what you get as far as that goes. One thing I will say about the fit and finish on the blade is these, I'm not going to call this jimping. It's absolutely not jimping. I don't even know why you would do this. All this is for aesthetic detailing, to add detail into this. It serves no function at all. Those cuts do not go across the spine of the blade. To me, that is a machining process that did not even need to be included in this design. I think that it's so subtle, it really adds nothing to the design. I think you could totally do away with it, substitute for some actual jimping on this, and functionally, it would be better for utilitarian use at that point. Fit and finish on the handle is pretty decent. The backside scale does have some coarse sanding marks that were missed in the flat here, as this handle is sort of radiused with a flat center section. The front scale is finished a little bit better as far as that goes. I'm not sure. Maybe there was a discoloring in the micarta, and they went in after the machining process and sort of hand sanded that out on this side. It's smooth to the touch, but if you catch it just right in the light, I'm looking through the camera, I can't see it at all. Maybe you guys can see. There's just a few coarse scratch marks here. The fit, as far as the profile of the scales, the radiusing of the scales, the fit to the liners, all of that is really, really good. It is as good as you would expect out of any of these knives. The liners do have an attractive polish on them that does match the finish on that pocket clip. The pocket clip itself is extremely functional. It is 98% deep carry with just a little bit left above the edge of the pocket here. So a nice discreet carry. Wire pocket clips are very discreet. It feels good in the hands. It's not a super tall pocket clip. Yeah, I can feel there's a pocket clip there, but it's not, I don't feel like there could possibly be any hot spot in it all. And it functions really well going in and out of the pocket with the smooth finish on the handle scales, smooth polished finish on the pocket clip. It works very well as far as that goes. All the hardware, let's take a look at this. It's all T8 hardware all over. all T8 hardware on that those domed screws. It also have a buffed and sort of polished finish to them. Overall, it comes together as a very nice looking package. And other than the way everything is finished, one of the reasons it's so attractive is this blade profile. Let's talk a little bit about the usability, utilitarian usefulness of this design. I initially thought this was going to be a straight up Persian-esque trailing point, and it is not. Even though it does have a high point in relationship to the center line of the design, which you would typically say would make it a trailing point, the predominant design aspect of this blade is the clip itself. It is a clip point blade, but the way the clip is shaped, at the center of the clip, the lowest part of the clip is so far back from the tip. That's what gives it that very high tip look. You're not, say this blade blank came out from the spine here straight out to a tip, and then you ground this clip out. The further forward the radius of this would be, the lower that tip would come down in the grinds. They've just moved the center point of that radius, the peak of the radius, back, and that has given the upswept part of the radius to the tip to this design. It is a very long clip. It's actually fairly subtle as far as its depth goes, and it is super attractive. I like a long clip for the most part on a clip point. I think it's a very sort of swoopy, fast, modern look for a clip point, and I've really started developing a love for modern clip point profiles here in the last few years. You've got a very sharp tip. Again, excellent job on the sharpening of this. We'll talk about that secondary bevel, but this thing is a needle on the tip. But it's not super thin either. It is just such an excellent job of sharpening, doing that secondary bevel. When they have done that, they have not rolled that tip at all. That is a very good sharpening job. So kudos to whoever is doing their sharpening. You come back from that piercy tip into a nice length of belly here. It's not super tight where you're rolling off of the belly trying to cut with it. It's a nice sweeping section back into a longish, straight edge portion of the blade, because you've got 3 3/4 of an inch or 9.5 centimeters of blade length here to work with. You've got a lot of separate working sections on this edge profile, and again 13 thousandths thickness behind the edge, and a secondary bevel that is very tightly done and well ground. Now, the sharp-eyed ones of you have noticed this choil area flowing into the plunge of the grind. This is a soft plunge. It's not an abrupt plunge. And you can see as the light plays down across through the plunge, it's going through the plunge, into the flat here. You can see this area is not far enough forward to get fully ahead of the thickness of that plunge. This should be another 1.5 millimeters wider. That would get you into the absolute flat plane of the primary grind, and it would they would have been able to sharpen it without this slight smiley face in right here. Now what this is freshly sharpened from the full edge of the profile here, freshly sharpened from the factory. It's already smiley faced. When you come back to resharpen this, every time you do, you're going to get more and more of a smiley face here, the last couple of millimeters, 1/16 of an inch of this edge. I would probably go in with a grinder and I would bring this out, that 2 millimeters, 1/16 of an inch right there, so I could get into the flat. It wouldn't really change the look of the knife. We need to see, now that I'm thinking about it, how do we stop off as far as the stop pin and everything goes. Yeah, we're fine on everything there. Yeah. I honestly, guys, what more can you say about this? I think the only negative is that point right there that can be easily remedied. Other than that, the grinds and everything are super good on this. The finishing is real good on it. The utilitarian aspects of this blade shape and grind type are obvious to anybody that has used a nice flat grind, terminated very thinly behind the edge, makes for a slicey knife, even with 4 millimeter blade stock thickness. That's really, really good. As far as the comfort, utilitarian use aspects of the handle, I see a lot here that I like in knives. It is very ergonomically shaped. We do have a nice wide open finger choil here, a nice wide open center section of the knife drop to the butt end, because again, when you hold a knife, your hand is not flat surfaces anywhere. That knife handle needs to fit within your grip. Okay, you can see in my large hands, I have large hand volume with medium length, chunky fingers. This is how that 5-inch handle fits in my hand, and it's comfortable to hold on to. It's an ergonomic shape. It is shaped in a way where you can retain your purchase on it, whether you're using it in a push cut, whether you're using the tip for a stabbing sort of motion. You can reverse that. You can butt cap on the butt end, and it's comfortable in this reverse grip as well. I don't see any issues in the handle. I think this choil is wide enough, okay, pulling back against the choil area here where you can use it as a forward finger choil, and you can get up on the back of the blade for some detail cutting here down along this fine straight edge. Just keep in mind, you're going to be right up against that sharpened edge there. If you do something and you slip off across there, you are going to cut yourself across the inside of your finger. That's something I really don't care for in a knife design, although some people do consider it a function as far as utilitarian use and variety of grips go. You know what? I don't really find anything wrong in any aspect of this knife, including the utilitarian aspects, the ergonomics of it. You know, you got a nice radius handle here. It is, what did I say for handle thickness? 599 thousandths of an inch. So it's slightly over a half an inch thick. But you know what? It doesn't feel at all thick in the hand. They've got a very good balance of a narrowness of the profile to thickness of the handle build. And it makes it feel out enough in the grip to where it feels like an actual usable tool, even though the grip is fairly narrow. It does not feel narrow to me. Now, will it feel narrow in your hands? I don't know. I can't feel your hands. I'm glad too. I don't know where they've been. There's no way to design any aspect of a knife that fits everybody. I just think this will fit very well, generally most people, from small, medium, large, even extra large hand size. Although extra large guys, it may start feeling a little narrow for them. Action on this thing is pretty stout. It's got a stout detent. I can tell you when I pulled it out of the box, it still had the oil on the blade that a lot of Asian-made knives come with. And the first time I tried to flip it, I totally came off of the flipper tab, slipped over the top of the flipper tab and failed it. I could not break the detent. It was so oily. But once I cleaned it up and I got on that, I found a fabulous, fabulous stout detent. You absolutely cannot fail the opening of this. You cannot fail the opening of this. Now, with a stout detent like that, you do run into a problem, and that is the increased chances you will slip off of that flipper tab. There is no jimping, and again, the finish is pretty smooth on this. You can see that it's nicely chamfered, nicely finished. It's got a forward rake to it, meaning that as a lever, it's going to work very well in relationship to the center point of the pivot and the strength of the detent. So it's mechanically efficient, that lever amplifying that force of the pressure of putting on it and the detent ball breaking out of its detent rest hole. It's very, very efficient flipper. It is very satisfying. Now, as far as the action closing it, it's everything but drop shut at the way it came out of the box. I have not adjusted it. It had zero play in the lockup. It had good action, and it's centered perfectly. I haven't touched the pivot on this. The only thing I did is when I got it, it felt a little dry in the pivot and on the detent ball. So I put 1 drop of oil in the pivot, and then I opened it up, looked to the inside, found the detent ball, reached in there with my needle applicator and put 1 drop of oil on that detent ball, opened it and closed it a few times. It's super smooth. The flipping action is explosive and very pleasing. The only thing I would wish is, along with that firm detent, I could have had just a few little jimpy jimps right here. Just a few jimpy jimps. I mean, take away this and give me just a few little jimpy jimps. I'm not asking for much. It's a jimpy jimp. Come on. Anybody can understand that. So my take on this knife is it's very much worth the price. It does have a couple of things that I would have done differently, and they, for the most part, do not negatively impact the use of the knife. You know what? If you get excited and you slip off the flipper tab, oh my God, it's the end of the world. What's going to happen now? Well, you just do it again. So that's not a huge loss. The plunge and the edge termination here is a little bit bigger of a deal to me, as resharpenings will bring that out, but it's easily fixable and it wouldn't take very long at all to fix that. Again, jimpy jimps up here. Come on, guys. If these are going to be working knives, they need to have some functional jimping. Functional. It doesn't always have to be aesthetically pleasing or a center point in the design. It just needs to be there and be functional. So my takeaway on this is that at $29, it's a good deal. It's a good knife. It's super solid, no issues in the function at all. The fit and finish is good. The action is excellent. Don't have to worry about a weak detent here. This guy is good to go as far as that goes. It's not too awful heavy. It's thin behind the edge, has decent materials, great pocket clip design, although not reversible. Keep that in mind. I think at that price, at $30, it's a really, really good deal. I will put a link in the description section and the pinned comment in this video for this knife, and you can go over to White Mountain Knives or any of your CH dealers and check it out. If you're looking for a D2 G10 stainless liner lock and you like clip points, this is a good option at that price point. As always, thank you very much for taking the time to watch one of my videos. God bless all of you, and we will talk to you again.